Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a breaking news reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is Forbes sports money reporter, Matt Craig. Matt, thanks for coming on.
Thank you, as always, for having me.
Of course, you wrote about the Swiss running shoe brand On this week. And at the U.S. Open, though, the company was involved in what you could describe as a misstep. Tell us about it.
Well, of course. On running shoes, they've gone from a startup company to a $10 billion public company in just a little over 10 years. So I'm talking about a very, very successful brand. But they've always done one thing extremely well, and that's make shoes that people love to run in. Um, Diving into another sport category is tough, especially in the case of tennis. That shoe requires something very different than a running shoe. Just if you think about the pattern of movement, a running shoe is just very straight line, move straight ahead. Tennis is 360 degrees. So the requirements of a tennis shoe are very different, and On learned that whenever they brought on Roger Federer as an investor in 2019 and tried to make a tennis shoe, they realized it was going to be a lot harder than they thought. So, in their particular case, they made a shoe with Roger Federer. It was the perfect shoe for him, everything to his specifications. And then when Roger Federer retired, they went out and signed two new professional tennis players, both of whom are promising, but both of whom move very differently than Roger Federer. So I think what you're referring to is with Iga Swiatek, the number one women's tennis player in the world. She signs a multi-million-dollar deal with On to wear all their products, and yet more than 6 months after signing that contract, she's still not wearing the On tennis shoes to play her matches in. And for a company that's invested heavily in her, I know that's a little bit of a disappointment.
How detrimental is this for a brand to have an ambassador of her stature in the sport come out in a competing brand?
Well, I guess it just depends on how long this goes. I think right now it's not that detrimental because it's such a new tennis product, and this deal still is 6 months old. In the case of Federer, for example, he signed on as an investor in 2019, and he didn't debut his original On Roger Pro shoe until 2021. So that was 2 years. If we're looking up in 2 years and Iga Swiatek's still not comfortable wearing the On tennis shoe, that would be detrimental. That would certainly be a problem. Right now, it's not. So it's really just about what I personally think is, this is the last major of the year. They'll have a little bit of extra time here in the winter, and hopefully by next year's Australian Open, she's in an On shoe, and that's when I think I think people will forgive. People will forgive, but I guess it just depends on how long it goes on.
You characterize On in your report as a scrappy startup, and now the brand is a $10 billion public company. So, can you walk us through its really meteoric rise?
Sure. So, it's three guys in Switzerland, and they have an idea for a running shoe. They come out with it in 2011, or I guess the first shoe doesn't come out until 2012. And really, by the next year, a gold medalist at the 2012 Olympics is a Swiss athlete is running in that shoe. And talk about an endorsement. I mean, if you think about what we just said about Iga Swiatek, this was a brand new brand at that point, and they got the endorsement of a Swiss Olympian. So from there, they grew as a private company. Then they IPO'd in 2021 and have really only grown since then. I mean, 6 straight quarters of record-breaking revenue for them. They're growing on a 40% clip. I mean, I think last quarter was like a 60% growth in sales. So they're growing like crazy. I think we've seen a trend across the industry for brands like this. Lululemon has grown tremendously in recent years. The Deckers brand, which is overseeing the Hoka running shoes, also is growing like crazy. So brands like this are doing very well. But in the case of On, they have the ambitions of becoming, like a Nike, like an Adidas, a cross-sport sportswear brand. And that's where I think this tennis experiment needs to work for them.